Now that you've seen the solar system stack made in 60 seconds and seen it click through as the test drive, I thought I'd go through a little more slowly and show what was happening. So what we started with was a web page at the hubblesite.org that has pictures from the Hubble telescope, including the solar system. And so for any of these images, they can be dragged to the desktop, and I did that for each of the planets and put them all in a folder called Hubble Solar System that you see here. To make a stack, we just drag that onto the HyperStudio icon, and within just a second or two, we now have all the cards set up for each planet. So I'm going to show the bottom toolbar so that I can turn on the card index. We'll move this out of the way. And so now what you're looking at, you can see here are each of the cards in the stack. As I click on them, it goes to a different card, and all of the images in the folder have been turned into a card. In the About This Card Inspector window that you see here, you'll notice that it's automatically been set up so that clicking on each card goes to the next card. So when we go back to Browse, for example, clicking on that automatically goes through the stack. So that's what happened when we dropped the folder of the Hubble images onto HyperStudio. It made an instant 10-card stack out of it. So now I'm going to go through to Mars and see what we did there. There's a bookmark that I had saved for Wikipedia with a picture of Percival Lowell. And the idea there is that if you drag a picture from your browser window to a HyperStudio stack, HyperStudio places that on the card. One of the kind of nice things it also does in the inspector is it puts the URL for that particular image under comments and attributions. But the URL for where this came from is not quite the same. It's the Wikipedia page. So to make that as a connection, I took the URL from the address bar, dropped that on his picture, and now if we go to Actions, you'll notice that it's automatically been set up to open a web page when his picture is clicked on, and where it goes to is the Wikipedia page. So there are two URLs associated with this image. One, the URL for the image itself, and the other one is open a web page that goes to his picture. When I drag the text over, I selected that as a block of text and put it over next to his picture, and I commented that just part of the process that's kind of neat is that any of the text that was a link in the Wikipedia entry is still a hypertext link when it's imported into HyperStudio. And so that's kind of neat too. In his information in Wikipedia, it mentions that he has an observatory called the Lowell Observatory. I clicked on that and again put that picture onto the card, and this time rather than linking it to a URL, I used I'll just move this over here and close it. I used a KMZ file, which is a Google Earth place marker file for Mars. If I click on that, you'll see that Google Earth opens, tells me we're going to go to Mars, and swings around, and there we are. What I called sort of the Mars approach view. Now the way you make a KMZ file is really quite simple. You go to a given location. You can zoom in, for example, and here's the Phoenix lander. Let's zoom in even closer on that, and even closer still. And now you'll see, you can notice here that there's a place where a greater degree of photography has been done. And if I keep zooming in, I'll get to a really high degree of detail. And in this case, not only is there a photograph, but somebody has made a 3D model of the Phoenix lander. There's also the panorama photo that we saw earlier, I'm not going to visit that right now. We're going to talk about how to put a place marker. There's one here that I put before, but we'll make a new one. You can either click twice on this yellow push pin, or you can go up to the Add menu in Google Earth and just choose Place Mark. And so here's a new push pin. We'll put it next to the lander. In the window, I'm just going to type in Phoenix. And to save this on the desktop, you go to the File menu and choose Save Place As. And we'll name that Phoenix and put it on the desktop. Now you probably saw that appear over here. So for instance, let's just close Google Earth to show that it works. If I wanted to have the observatory go to the Phoenix lander site, I would just take the Phoenix KMZ file, drop it on the picture, and when we look in the inspector, you'll see this time it says go to another program. Open that up and it says Phoenix KMZ file. Now, if you've just set up Google Earth, sometimes Photoshop tries to grab these files because it thinks the KMZ files for it. In this case, I'm not going to set this to Google Earth because it just works, but if you had a problem, we could click on Application and specify Google Earth. So let's just try that. Let's go to the Browse tool and test it out. If we click on Lowell, there's the web page that you saw earlier in the demonstration, the test drive. And if I click on the observatory, Google Earth opens, switches to Mars, and now instead of just the approach distance, it's going to zoom way down and take us to the model of the lander. Let's see, let's just click that one more time and see, there we go. And in we go. And you'll notice the other nice thing is that the view you select when you place your place mark is exactly the one that it returns to. So there's the 3D model, and it's based on our place mark that we made. The other thing I did was I had a bookmark for the NASA JPL website, and that's where we got the picture of Carl Sagan. I'm going to close that, and there was a movie of the Viking probe landing on Mars. So I got that from the JPL site. I took the picture of Carl Sagan, dropped it on the card. So there he is. I made it a little bit smaller to fit. You'll notice at the moment for the inspector there are no actions, but if I take the Mars movie and watch the inspector here when I drag this and drop it onto Carl Sagan and the probe, drop, and a check mark appears, play movie. I can edit that. We could reposition it. Right now the movie is here in the corner, and it's rather large. Let's move that up where we can see all of it. So we can make that any size we want. We can move it wherever you want it on the card. Click OK. OK, and there's the inspector set up for that action. Click on the Browse tool. Click on Carl.
ACS is green, 1.5 degrees per second max, 0.2 Gs. Touchdown, we have touchdown.
And there he is. So that's how I built the demo. I hope that explains it and shows that it's quite possible to build quite a bit of a HyperStio project without ever even going to any of these menus like add a graphic or add text or add a movie, because it works with drag and drop either directly from the browser as you're doing the research, or even as you are dragging things from the desktop. The other thing you can do, which I'll just mention here, is let's open up the Spit Hubble gallery. In this case, this is a bookmark for the asteroids. You'll notice that in our project, when I go to the storyboard view, I have Mars and Jupiter, but I don't have a card for the asteroids. If you're in the storyboard view, another drag and drop is that you can just take this and drop it, and this, oops, missed one, go over one. So I'll drop it between Mars and Jupiter, and there we are. Twice, there's the asteroids, and there's Jupiter, and to the other direction is Mars. So drag and drop works pretty neat, including using the storyboard. If you think about it, you could be in browsers going to a number of places, and anytime you wanted to add something else, maybe you want this picture of one of the moons of Jupiter, just drop it in, and the project gets organized. That picture is a little small, in case you're wondering, just because it happens to be one. We use the thumbnail and not the full size. If we went to a larger one, let's do that again. Delete the card, drop it back in, a little bigger this time. Oh, sorry. Put that there. And so there's the larger image. Whatever image I drag over gets used as the background for that card. So I hope you've enjoyed that extended explanation of the drag and drop way of creating a stack in HyperStudio. And as always, send me an email or ask questions. Always happy to help.